Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Dice and Brushes. Today is going to be part 2 of our Codex Works overview. Last time we went over the clan-specific Warlord Traits, Relics, Stratagems, and their cultures. Now, I don't want to go over the specialist mobs, the custom jobs, or even the stratagems until after we go through the data sheets, and those will be in later videos. For today, my main goal is just to go over the generic Warlord traits, the generic relics, and then I want to get into the two psychic disciplines that orcs have access to. Without further ado, let's get straight into this. Part 2. So, Warlord traits for the orcs. If an orc's character model is your warlord, you can select the orc's warlord traits table down below. If a beast Naga character is your warlord, you can instead use the beast Naga warlord traits table below. If you have a speed freaks character as your warlord, you can use the speed freaks warlord traits. So pretty simple to follow, even for an orc. So first of the generic warlord traits is Follow Me Lads. This is an aura ability. If this warlord has made a charge move this turn, until the end of the turn, each friendly Clan Orcs unit declares a charge against an enemy unit that is within engagement range of this warlord. Add 1 to the charge roll for that unit. So if your warlord charges a particularly large unit that he's gonna have trouble dealing with, this is a good one. But it's not the best, especially when you compare it to the clan-specific ones that we went over. So, if you current orc players can give circumstances where that is an ideal warlord trait, let us know in the comments below. Me coming back into orcs from 5th edition, I'm just not seeing that particular one. Yes, +1 to charge is good, but it's only against what the warlord is already in combat with, and as we will go over later, chances are, if your warlord's in combat with something, he's gonna beat it to death. It's not like orcs are an auto win against anything by any means, but there's just better stuff than this. Warlord trait Big Gob. Add 3 inches to the range of this warlord's aura abilities to a maximum of 9. This one is actually very good. I wouldn't take it as my primary warlord trait. This is something like I would probably put on like a you can short little bit. You can spend CP to make to give someone else a warlord trait. This is something I would spend CP on. If you want to use it on your big mech with custom force field, if you want to use it on Pain Boy or somebody like that, this is actually a very good one. This I would take for CP, but not as the primary. Next up is Hard as Nails. Each time an attack is made that targets this warlord, subtract 1 from the attack's wound roll. Okay, so if you just want to make him tanky, there you go. Brutal but Cunning. This time, each time this warlord fights, if all of its attacks targets 1 enemy unit, after resolving all of those attacks, it can make a number of additional attacks equal to the number of attacks that did not reach the inflict damage step of the attack sequence during that fight. So, simple example, War Boss is swinging his Power Claw at a Space Marine Smash Captain. Space Marine Smash Captain, either you don't hit for some reason, you don't wound, or they make their save. Maybe they feel no pain through. Anything that didn't inflict damage, just roll those dice again, and you got another shot. This one is probably the strongest of any that are here. Especially when we go into things like the beast boss on the Squiggazor. Especially when you consider that the Squiggazor is involved in this too. That is strong. I would take that almost every time. Next up, we got Cunning but Brutal. At the start of the fight phase, if this Warlord is within engagement range of enemy units, it can fight first that phase. So there's no counterplay. So they can't use their 2 CP for counteroffensive to attack your Warlord after you attack with some boys or something. This is solid. Let's see, next up, Might is Right. Add 1 to the Warlord's strength and attacks characteristics. Again, solid, but not as strong as Brutal but Cunning if you're looking for if you do want to boost that offensive damage. Brutal but Cunning is where it's at. If you want that defensive ability where he just doesn't die, go for Hard as Nails. If you're looking again for something like a big mech with custom force field or the Pain Boy, Pain Boss, Big Gob is awesome. Next up, let's look at the Beast Naga Warlord traits. We have, first off, Big Kill a Boss. Each time this Warlord fights, if it is within engagement range of an enemy vehicle or monster units, then until that fight is resolved, add 2 to the Warlord's attack characteristics. Okay. Each time this Warlord makes a melee attack against a monster or vehicle unit, add 1 to the attack's wound roll as well. So you're already getting, as Beast Naga is a keyword, Beast Naga is also an ability. It also gives you an ability where you get a bonus to hit monsters and vehicles. So you get a bonus to hit, you get a bonus to wound them. It's all good. Again, I know I said I didn't want to go over the data sheets just yet. I just want to make a small point here if I can find it. Let's see. Yep, Beast Naga is on page 80. Yeah, where is it? Beast Naga. Each time a model with this ability makes an attack that targets a monster vehicle, add 1 to the attack's hit roll. And every model in this unit has a 6-up invulnerable save. I'll go over these more in detail another time, but I just want to make that point about the Beast Naga here. So having those combine is strong. I don't know if it's stronger than Brutal but Cunning, though. So Brutal but Cunning is more generalist. Big Kill a Boss is obviously it's going to be stronger against those specific targets. Next up, we're going to go to Beast Gob Aura ability. While a friendly Clan Squig unit is within 6 inches of this Warlord, each time a model in that unit makes a melee attack with Squighog Jaws, smashes Squig's Jaws, or Squigosaur Jaws, this would include the Beast Naga boss on Squigosaur himself, add 1 to the attack's characteristic. So, this doesn't sound like a whole lot until you actually look at the characteristics. So you're looking at a lot of things that are damage 2, damage 3. To make them damage 3, damage 4, you're genuinely looking at each attack from those squigs just outright killing a Terminator, outright killing a Custode. The only problem with this aura ability is what it is limited to. The things with the squig keyword, it's just so little in this codex. I would like for this to be a bigger deal. I would like additional squig units, or at least something else to get the squig keyword. So I already know that it's overpowered as crap, but like if a squig buggy got the squig keyword, although I understand why they didn't, this would actually be extremely good. Right now, it's pretty much limited to the war boss on Squigazor. So it's pretty much limited to him. It is the next few things that actually have this squig keyword. Let's see, does he? No, he doesn't have the squig keyword either. Yep, doesn't have it. The knob on Smash a Squig. So you got 1, 2, 3 units with the squig keyword in this entire codex. They are strong units, don't get me wrong. Let's see, yep, damage 2, damage 2, and the Squigzor is going to be damage 3. If you have an orc army that has a whole bunch of them, that is your bread and butter, go for it. But if you do not, like, that'd be great in an Outrider detachment. If your army is just those Squig Hog Riders, as many of the knobs on Smasher Squigs and the Beast Boss on Squigzor, go for it. I think you'd still be better off with either Big Killer Boss or Brutal but Cunning. But it is a lower contender. Next up from the Beast Naga Warlord traits is Half Chewed. While this Warlord is within engagement range of an enemy character or monster, each time this model would lose a wound, on a 4-up, that wound is not lost. 4-up, feel no pain if you're in combat with a character or monster. Again, I understand why they limited it to those, to being in combat with a character or a monster, because a 4-up, feel no pain regularly would probably be too much. But if I'm going for durability on a Beast Naga Warlord, Hard as Nails is still, in general, going to be better because it's not just it's not just characters or monsters that are in close combat. it's all the time, -1 from the attack's wound roll. So this durability warlord trait compared to that one just doesn't cut it. At least not in my opinion. Last up for the generic warlord traits, we have Speed Freaks. The first one up for them is Roadkiller. After this warlord makes a charge move, you can select one enemy unit within 1 inch of it, roll a d6. On a 2-up, that unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. Now, I got lucky and got the Forge World Speed War Boss on Warbike from my local game store, used. This one would actually be very good for him. I like it. But at the same time, I just think there's stuff that's better in general. Get in their faces. This warlord is eligible to shoot in a turn in which they fell back. So if you're going for the Def-Killer War Trike, I can understand this. But again, these two just aren't as strong as the more generic traits. And then lastly, for Speed Freaks, we have Junk Boss, 4-up invul save. Especially nowadays, 4-up invul save is particularly strong. But again, you're looking for durability. I would probably just go with Art as Nails. I can see where you would want Junk Boss, especially against anything that's that has a lot of AP value to it. So you're fighting off your Thunder Hammers and stuff like that. But there's also a lot of stuff these days that is dealing mortal wounds on a unmodified 6. So that mortal wound will go through, realistically, both of these, because unmodified. But at the same time, this is just more likely to prevent you from even having to make an invul save later on. Plus, when we start talking about relics, you could either combine it with Junk Boss, combine it with Art as Nails, and make your own decision. But I would just go with Art as Nails. To me, these Speed Freak Warlord traits are just underwhelming in comparison to the generic Warlord traits. Alright, next up, we're going to go to the generic relics. If your army is led by an Orc Warlord, then you can give any of the following shiny gubbins to an Orc character in your army. Named characters cannot be given any of the following relics unless specifically stated otherwise. Vehicles models cannot be given any of the following relics. Which kind of is unfortunate for those of you who want to run the Def-Killer War Trike, because if I remember correctly, which I'll check real quick, I do believe that has the vehicle keyword. Yes, it does. So your Def-Killer War Trike can never have any of these relics. First up is the Super Cyborg body. This is for infantry only. This model has a 4-up invul save. Each time an attack is allocated to this model, have the damage characteristic of that attack. So, this is why I said a little bit earlier, combine the relics with your Warlord trait. You want something that's just durable? Super Cyborg body, have that 4-up invul, have the damage characteristic, and have Art as Nails. To have them subtract 1 from the wound roll, half damage, and 4-up invul save. there you go. And if we'll go over a little bit later, but this works particularly well with, oh, where's his picture? Because it's a pretty picture and I love looking at it. The Beast Boss on Squigazor. This combo works particularly well with him, with his thick hide ability. But next up for the generic relics, we have Edwapa's Kill Choppa. Model equipped with a Beast Choppa, Big Choppa, or an Huge Choppa only. This relic replaces whichever one of those that the character has with the following profile. Kill Choppa is a melee weapon, no surprise. Strength is ×2, AP -3, flat 2 damage. Each time an attack is made with this weapon, an unmodified wound roll of a 6 inflicts 1 mortal wound in addition to any normal damage. So, if you want an offensive style Beast Boss on Squigazor, for example, this combined with Brutal but Cunning is phenomenal. Next up is Dakrussian Arma. This is Mega Armor model only. The bear has a 4-up invul save, +1 to armor saving throws made for the bearer. So Mega Armor is already a 2-up armor save, so this puts you to automatically a 1-up all the time. After the bear makes a charge move, select one enemy unit within 1 inch of it and roll a d6. On a 2+, that unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. So you could put this on a Big Mech and Mega Armor, but realistically, if you're charging into him, you're probably going to put this into the War Boss in Mega Armor that is now available in the Combat Patrol. And there's a few Warlord traits that we just went over that would complement this relic very well. So again, if you want to go over just being tough, Art as Nails with that, awesome. Again, -1 to be wounded, you got a 1-up armor save, 4-up invul save, and you deal you probably will deal mortal damage on charges. Let's see, anything else I would really, not from the generic. Yeah. So that would be probably, again, if you want pure durability. I believe that would be the way to go from that War Boss and Mega Arma. Then next up is my personal favorite, Dakrussian Claw. Another melee weapon which replaces the Power Claw. Strength ×2, AP is -4 instead of AP -3. And the damage is flat 3 instead of 2. And there is no -1 to hit for this, as opposed to what the Power Claw has. So, if you just want, let's say, two Warlords, sorry, not 2 Warlords, well, yes, 2 Warlords, 1 in each detachment, maybe one of them has, let's say you're going full offensive, just for giggles here. One of the War Boss with the Killer Claw, and now we'll get to the other part later. The War Boss with Killer Claw in 1 detachment, and the other detachment, maybe you got a Beast Boss on Squigazor who has the Edwapa's Kill Choppa. Alternatively, if you wanted a kind of mini, air quotes, mini Beast Boss on Squigazor, you could go with the Knob on Smash a Squig, and you could give the Knob on Smash a Squig the Edwapa's Kill Choppa. That is an option. If you want to go, if you want to go full offensive. And again, putting the Killer Claw with Brutal but Cunning. Decent choice. I wouldn't say it's the best in this codex, but decent. Next up for the relics is the Dead Shiny Shuda. Model equipped with custom Shuda only. So this is basically your big mechs. This relic replaces that custom Shuda with Dead Shiny Shuda. Range 18, Dakka 1410, Strength 5, AP -1, 2 damage. And for anyone who isn't aware, Dakka is basically a weapon type that is very similar to Rapid Fire. The first number that you see, in this case 14, is the number of attacks you get when you're within half range, so in this case 9 inches. The other number is number of shots that you get up to the full range. So 9 inches or less, you get 14. 9 inches or more, you get 10. And with Orky Ballistic skill, you're generally hitting on a 5+. There is some stuff that hits on 4s, but they're rare. So, because of Orky Ballistic skill, I pass this up out of hand. Next up is Scorched Git Bones. Psyker model only. And this can be taken by a Psyker vehicle model. Each time the bear attempts to manifest a Witchfire psychic power, add 1 to the psychic test. Each time the bear would lose a wound as a result of suffering perils of the warp, roll a d6. On a 4-up, that wound is not lost. It's not bad, especially being able to have +1 to casting Witchfires is not bad at all, especially with the Beast Head Discipline, which has a lot more of those than Power of the Wa. So, alright. I can kind of get behind it if you want that, but with my orc build, I just want a swarm, and then that's it. So, I would avoid this one, but I can understand its place. Then lastly, for the relics, we have Beast Hide Mantle. This is a Beast Naga model only. Add 1 to the bear's attack characteristic, and each time the bear would lose a wound, roll a d6. On a 5-up, that wound is not lost. So again, this pairs particularly well with the beast boss on Squigazor, who is already very tough to kill as it is. But in general, for that character, I would give him Edwappa's Kill Choppa. And again, we'll probably touch on that we'll touch on another video if I remember to link it between this and that one. So next up, let's look at the psychic powers, starting with Power of the Wa discipline. So, when a Psyker unit from your army manifests a psychic power from the Power of the Wa discipline, place all instances of clan keyword on that psychic power with the clan that the Psyker is drawn from. Kind of a no-brainer. First off, there is Edbanga. This is a Witchfire, so it would be affected by those Git Bones. Warp Charge 5. If manifested, select an enemy unit within 18 inches of the Psyker and roll a d6. If the result is higher than the selected unit's toughness characteristic, that unit suffers d6 mortal wounds. No more than 1 model can be destroyed as a result of these mortal wounds. Any excess damage is lost. And that's the part that gets me. No more than one model can be destroyed. And it's against their toughness. It's easy to destroy a toughness 3 model, but unless it's a character, it's not very good. Because generally you're gonna have to go through a whole bunch of troops and elites, maybe even some heavies uh, before you can get to a character. And because this is basically a toughness test, yeah, I I just wouldn't take this one. Again, it's great against characters, but it's going to take some good positioning to get that one going off. Next up is Warpath. This one I do like. This is a blessing. Warp Charge 6. If manifested, select one clan core or clan character unit within 18 of this psyker until the start of your next psychic phase. Add 1 to the attack characteristic of the models in that unit. I like that when you combine it with the jump. Now, the jump is Warp Charge 7. Select one friendly clan core unit within 12 inches of the psyker. Remove that unit from the battlefield and set them up anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches away from enemy models. So we'll go over more detail in the datasheet, but if your Weird Boy is within 20 orcs, he can cast an additional power. So get a mob of 30 boys, bless them with Warpath, use to jump to put them into the enemy lines, or just somewhere where you don't want the enemy to be. Maybe put them on a flank or something like that. And then just charge in using Here We Go to re-roll the charge roll. It's just beautiful. That combo is just beautiful to me. And even if it's not the most competitive, I just like the idea of it. I just like the idea of a mob of orcs charging in with all those attacks. And you'll see, and let's see, just for reference purposes, show how much a regular squad of boys gets. So normal boys would get 2 attacks. Choppa, if you give them a Choppa, you get another attack. So with this, each boy would be getting 4 attacks. And you can have, if you're doing this combo, you need at least 20, but you can have up to 30 boys in that unit. Well, 29 boys and a knob. But you get the idea. Knob gets an extra attack. So do your 30 times 4, that's 120 attacks, plus 1 for the knob. That's a lot of attacks, hitting on 3s, probably wounding on 4s. If you're attacking an infantry unit, which could easily be 3s if you're Goths. I love it. Next power is the Fists of Gork. This is Warp Charge 6. If manifested, select one friendly orc psyker within 12 of this psyker that is also visible. Until the start of your next psychic phase, add 2 to the strength and attack characteristics. If the result of the psychic test was 11 or more, add 3 to the model's strength and attacks characteristics. So again, if you have this on your Weird Boy, putting this on your Beast Boss on Squigs, or putting this on your regular War Boss, putting this on your War Boss and Mega Arma. Phenomenal. Just absolutely phenomenal. Next up, we're going to go with Dakrussian. This is a Witchfire, so again, this benefits from the Get Bones. Warp Charge 6. Select an enemy unit within 18 inches of this Psyker. Roll d6 for each model in that unit. For each roll of a 6, the enemy suffers 1 mortal wound. If the psychic test was passed on a 9 or more, add 1 to rolls when resolving the psychic power, so making it go off on a 5+. Not bad. This definitely has its place, but it is on 6s, well, maybe 5s. So it's kind of like orcs, it's rather unpredictable. I can see its place. I just don't know if it would go into my particular style of just fun orc list. If you've already been using this, let us know in the comments if you've had success with this power or any circumstances that you think that this would be better than, Warpath and having Warpath or to jump. Next up is Jabbin' Fingers. Malediction. Jabbin' Fingers has a warp charge of 6. If manifested, select 1 enemy unit within 18 inches of the Psyker and visible to them. Until the start of your next psychic phase, each time with a model in that unit makes an attack, subtract 1 to the attack's hit roll. So he's literally psychically jabbing his fingers into your eyeballs, making it harder for you to hit. Okay. Mine having an enemy unit be -1 to hit anything isn't bad. Alright. It's not bad, but I definitely like Warpath and to jump a lot better. I do like Fists of Gork, especially if I were running a character-heavy list. And I can see a place for Dakrussian more than Jabbin' Fingers or Edbanger. Right, last of the psychic disciplines, we'll go over the Beasthead discipline with the Roar of Mork. Now, before I even go over any further, I should mention that the Beasthead discipline is only available to 1 model in this entire codex. And that's the Werboy. He's the only one. Actually, let me check. I'm pretty sure he's the only one that can... Is he the only one, or is he the only one that he can take? I probably just passed it and didn't realize. Weird boy, weird boy, weird boy. Yeah, I did. See, weird boy takes his powers from Power of Wa. Werboy takes his powers from Beasthead only. I want to like the Beasthead discipline more, but it just doesn't buff the army like Power of the Wa does. This is more of your... this is where a lot more of your Witchfires are. This is where specifically boosting Squig units is. But let's get on to it. Roar of Mork, not Gork. Warp Charge 6, if manifested. Select 1 enemy unit within 18 and visible to the Psyker. Until the start of your next psychic phase, subtract 2 from advance and charge rolls made for that unit. Okay. So you're just slowing them down, making sure that they don't get to an objective or charge one of your more out of place units. Okay. until the start of your next psychic phase, while an enemy unit is within 18 inches of this psyker. Subtract 1 from the leadership characteristic for models in that unit. -1 leadership, especially with how leadership is in 9th, could definitely lead to additional models running away in a unit. However, most armies have a way, in addition to insane bravery for 2 command points, most armies have a way to ignore it. Essentially ignore it. Auto pass, something along those lines. So unless you're able to basically force a morale check on 3 different units in 9th edition, this bullet point I don't think matters a whole lot. Again, unless you can force a morale check on at least 3 different units, and having preferably as many of them as you can within 18 inches of the psyker. But you don't really want this psyker in close combat. So, no. Next up is Frazzle Fire. Warp Charge 6. If manifested, roll a d6 for each enemy unit within 9 inches of the psyker. On a 4-up, that unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. So, suicide by Warboy, that's suicidal. Just throw them in a particularly elite unit and just cast this. Although, depending on what you're fighting, they might be able to shut it down. And if you're pushing that Warboy that far up the board, they probably have their own psyker or some way to deny psychic powers in range. This is better for if your enemy deep strikes a unit of Terminators or 2 in your back lines, turn 2 or 3, and you haven't moved your Warboy up so much. In that particular kind of case, I could see Frazzle being very good, but not outside. So I would definitely pass this up. Next up for the Beast Head is Biting Jaws. This is a Witchfire, Warp Charge 6. If manifested, select 1 enemy model that is within 18 inches of and visible to the psyker. Draw a line between any part of the psyker's base and any part of the selected model's base or hull. The selected model's unit and every other enemy unit that passes this line passes over or through suffers 1 mortal wound. I can see it. So for those of you who don't know, they're not saying that the line can be really thick. In fact, if you look at FAQs that go off of anything that's similar to this, they basically tell you to take the average tape measure, and I wonder if I have one real close at hand or not, and turn it on its side. And then that is the width that it should be. It should be about 1 millimeter in thickness, if I remember correctly. So I see it's, again, kind of like Dakrussian. I see its value, but there's just better stuff here. Take a quick swig. Next up is Spirit of Gork. This is a blessing, Warp Charge 6. If manifested, select 1 friendly squig unit within 12 inches and visible to the psyker. Until the start of the next psychic phase, each time that unit fights, it can make one additional attack with each Big Choppa's jaws, Squighog's jaws, Smash It Squig Jaws, or Squigosaur Jaws it is equipped with. Each time a model in that unit makes an attack with all those jaws, an unmodified wound roll of a 6, that attack inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target in addition to any normal damage. If you're running a Squig heavy list, again, Squig Hog Boys, Knob on Smashes Squig, Beast Boss on Smashes Squig, then this is actually very strong. I'm just worried that, one, you would have to have your Psyker that far up. Well, I shouldn't say all of it. If you have the Warboy that close up, it's dangerous. But, now that's coming to my mind here, where is the other model that actually can do this quite well? Not the Hunter Rig, I'm looking for the Kill Rig. There we go. So the Kill Rig is a vehicle psyker. It can move, starts at moving 12, then gets slower as it gets damaged, but it has a Warboy on top. And when your toughness 8, 16 wounds for the Kill Rig, it can actually keep up with all the Squig Hog Riders. So if you go with the Kill Rig, I can definitely see if you go with the Kill Rig in a Squig heavy list, I can see the Spirit of Gork being very good for you. Next up is Beast Scent, Malediction, Warp Charge just 5 now. Select one enemy unit within 18 inches of the Psyker until the start of the next Psychic phase. That unit does not receive the benefits of cover against attacks made by Beast Naga units from your army. They do not receive the benefits of cover, so they cannot hold steady, they cannot set to defend. Okay. This is another thing. Especially if I'm trying to charge a unit in cover, or particularly heavy cover. I forget if it's heavy or dense that gives you the bonus. I forget. I'd have to look it up. But Beast Scent I can see. Again, Beast Scent and Spirit of Gork in a Squig heavy list, I can see. And they're cool models, so that's something I would like to do at some point. Next up, lastly, we have Squiggly Curse. This has a warp charge value of 7. If manifested, select one enemy unit within 12 inches of the Psyker, roll a d6. For each model in that unit, to a maximum of 6 dice. For each result of a 4-up, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So you're probably going to get maximum of 6 dice, so you're probably going to get 3 mortal wounds from this. If any models in that unit were destroyed by the psychic power, every other enemy unit within 6 inches of that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. And in this age where things get castled up, things travel together a lot, that's not too bad. I definitely don't think it's as powerful as Spirit of Gork, but it's not too bad. The major outcry against this power is that there used to be, I know it was in 5th edition, I don't know if it was in 6th or not. I'm going to have to get a swig of water to go through this story. Sorry about that. There used to be a named Psyker in the Ork army, a named Weird Boy. The way I understand it, he was basically bitten by a bunch of vipers and survived, and he was thought to be extremely tough. But also from there on out, he, both in lore and in rules, he had a power similar to what the Chaos Codex can do, to where he can point at a character, or could, I'm sorry, he could point out a character, cast the psychic power, and if the psychic power was cast, that model was replaced with an squig model. Just like in the Chaos Codex, the Chaos player has to provide the spawn model. In this case, the Orc player had to provide the squig model. And the squig model had its own stats. So you could genuinely take, let's see, what characters were, what was the biggest, baddest character back then? You could take Avatar of Cain, you could take Abaddon, you could take, not Gilliman, I can't remember the chapter master of the Ultramarines, all of a sudden, Marnius Calgar. You could take any of those characters and turn them into a squig. That was fun. If you were the Orc player, it was horrific if you were the opposing player. But it was very difficult to get that power off. It was just hilarious when it did. It was a long shot, but it was hilarious. And let's see. I don't see why not. We can add in the chapter approved rules. So these are the secondaries for the orcs. I kind of like these, especially with the orc army build that I am going for. I'm going for a green tide, not just purely orc boys, but I'm looking for like a lot of commandos, a lot of storm boys. I really like the beast Naga model, so I have 40 of those in the ultimate 2K list. I do have some Squig Hog Riders in that 2K list just because I love the models. So it's not pure green tide, it's just very close. I got about 40 boys or so, and that's just scratching the surface here. And by the nature of that style list, these objectives is just something that list can get just by existing. But let's get into it. First off, for the orcs, under their No Mercy, No Respite section, they can take Stomp 'em Good. If you select this secondary objective, you score victory points for the following. You score 3 victory points at the end of each battle round if the number of enemy units destroyed by melee attacks made by orc units in your army is more than the number of friendly non-Gretchen units that were destroyed by melee attacks during this battle round. So Green Tide, going in with just Sluggish Chappas, with almost little or no Gretchen, they just kill more units than they got killed in turn. Units, not models. They score 3 victory points. You can score an additional victory point at the end of each battle round if the number of enemy units destroyed by melee attacks made by orcs from your army is at least 2 and double or more than the number of friendly non-Gretchen units that were destroyed by melee attacks made during this round. If you're going up against Tau, this is a no-brainer. A guard, almost a no-brainer. But let's keep going. If you're going for something around the Shadow Operations area, you can go for Get to Good Bits. If you selected this secondary objective, then after both sides have finished deploying, starting with your opponent, players alternate selecting objective markers that are not within any player's deployment zone to be Good Bits objective markers until 3 objective markers have been selected. However, if there's only one such objective marker, then only that objective marker is a Good Bits objective marker. Orc core units from your army can attempt the following action. Get to Good Bits. Action. At the end of your movement phase, one or more Ork core units from your army can start to perform this action. Each unit from your army that starts to perform this action must be in range of a different good bits objective marker. A unit cannot start this action while there are any enemy units, excluding aircraft, in range of the same objective marker. The action is completed at the end of your next command phase, provided the unit attempting that action can still be within range of that good bits objective marker. Score 3 victory points at the end. Score 3 victory points each time a unit from your army completes the get the good bits action. Okay, pretty simple. Have Green Tide go forward, distract the enemy. Like, I'll already have commandos basically lined up, ready to die, with a green flood coming up behind, and just a few units are already there, just, again, naturally, gonna go for that. Next up is, under the Purge the Enemy tag, we have the biggest and the best. This one's a lot more fluffy. I do enjoy, I like the thought of this one. If you select this secondary objective, you score 3 victory points at the end of each battle round for each of the following achieved by your Ork Warlord, for a maximum of 5. First bullet point, an enemy monster or vehicle is destroyed as a result of a melee attack made by this warlord. Second bullet point, an enemy character is destroyed as a result of a melee attack made by this warlord. Third bullet point, 5 or more enemy models were destroyed as a result of attacks made by this warlord. Now let's go back to the Warlord traits. This is part of why Brutal but Cunning is so strong. You put all your attacks into a single enemy unit. Whatever doesn't get to the damage step, or doesn't inflict damage, I'm sorry, just those attacks are basically redone. So if you only need to kill 5 models, a monster vehicle keyword, or a keyword character, that's pretty darn good. That's a very, very high chance of 5 victory points, especially if you have either the Killa Claw or Edwapa's Kill Choppa. Then the last secondary objective, available only to the Orcs, is Green Tide. At the start of the battle, divide the battlefield into 4 even quarters. Score 3 victory points at the end of the battle round if 2 or more battlefield quarters each have an Orcs unit from your army that contains 11 or more models wholly within them. So if you have units of 10, this does not work. So you can't have a unit of 10 and a unit of 10, and okay, there's 20 in that corner. No, that doesn't count. It has to be these larger units. Score 5 victory points at the end of the battle round. Instead, if all 4 battlefield quarters each have an Orcs unit from your army that contains 11 or more models wholly within them. Now, the only problem that I have seen about this secondary objective is that, unlike how the main rulebook shows you how to divide up the battlefield and deployment zones and all that, this doesn't tell you how you have to divide up those 4 even quarters. So if this book is the battlefield, I could have it to be basically have a line in each page here for part 1, part 2, line here, part 3, then have another one here for part 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just by the way that this is written. You could do that. You could have it part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. You could have it split normal into actual quarters, table corners, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. To me, it would be disingenuous to break it up like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. To me, it would be disingenuous, again, to break it up 1, 2, 3, 4. Rules as written, it can be any of them. Rules as intended, I don't know. But just for the sake of consistency from what I've seen from other codexes, which has something kind of similar in a way that talks about putting the battlefield into quarters, I would probably always say 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, splitting it like this. But I can understand rules as intended going one way. And if you're at a tournament, by all means go for it. But if you're playing a friendly game, that's where I should say that I feel that it is disingenuous to be 1, 2, 3, 4 or 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're at a tournament, all good. If you're in a friendly game, just don't do it, please. That just does, at least to me, does not feel right. Right? But otherwise, just from the way that my army, that I plan on building it up, because I'm only at roughly 750 points of actual painted, somewhere between 500 and 750 points actually painted up. All the way up to the 2K list, most of these, if not all of these, would be just something that it gets just by existing. So I would love to play these rules, these secondary objectives, with the Green Tide style list that I'm trying to make. For a Speed Freaks army, which has a lot of buggies, Def Killer War Trike, I'm not so sure, because they're great in shooting, but a lot of these are melee based. Purge the enemy, no mercy, no respite. Those can't really get Green Tide. And those Speed Freaks armies that are based on the buggies, the War Trike. No, sorry, did I say the War Trikes? The War Trike, the War Bikers. I think the Bikers do have the core keyword, so they could get the good bits. But again, they're better in shooting than they are in melee. So I really wouldn't go Stomp 'em Good or take the biggest and the best for an Orcs Speed Freaks style army, let alone Green Tide. But they do definitely have their place. If you have a Squig style army, a lot of the Squig Hog boys, the biggest and the best is awesome. Stop 'em Good is awesome. Get the good bits, very good. Ed Wappa's Kill Choppa, awesome. Beast Hide Mantle, awesome. If we're looking at Beast Hide Discipline, again for Squig, for a Squig style, Spirit of Gork, decent. Let's see, and then again, Warlord Traits, Brutal but Cunning is where I would go for a Squig list. But other than that, For those of you who are much more experienced Orc players, let me know what I messed up here. Let me know what I could have improved upon. What what Warlord trait to Relic, power and psychic power combinations do you think work very, very well? Right, this has been Mason with Dice and Brushes. In the meantime, get your stuff painted.